Hello and welcome to another video from the only channel that you need to not only survive the current apocalypse, but actually enjoy it. And today's video is going to be about the major change that has recently taken place in the hierarchy of the United States government. Now, normally I don't let things like this become an issue, especially with my channel, but honestly, I haven't had my channel that long, and the last time they had a change of presidents, this channel didn't even exist. However, during the course of the previous president's administration, a lot of emotional issues came up, and I never once addressed any of that because I just didn't think of it as important. Currently, we have a new president, and looking back over the 11 presidents that I've lived under, the 9 that I remember very clearly, I don't really see anything to distinguish one from the other. With one exception, this particular president has been in the public eye for a long time. Usually when they announce that someone's running for president, it's the first time I have ever heard of that person in my life. Even when Ronald Reagan was president or ran for president, I didn't know who he was. He was a movie star, and he had quite a few movies out there, but you know, even now looking back at his movies, they weren't that good. He wasn't a very good actor, and to me, he was just another politician. But this guy has been in the public eye for a long time, and pretty much the way that he differs from Ronald Reagan is that everybody was familiar with Ronald Reagan as an actor, but they weren't really familiar with him as a person. Most of what we've seen in the last few years of Donald Trump in front of a camera is him just talking unscripted. So we feel that we have a pretty good idea of what kind of man this particular president is already. Now, currently, people are going crazy because they feel like they've been handed a president that is a racist, who's degrading to women, and who has a Zionist agenda. Now, if we look at everything we know about Donald Trump currently, it would not be logical to conclude that he has a less of a respect for women than the previous president. During Barack Obama's presidency, and I wasn't able to confirm this, but I do know historically from things that I've read before, that approximately 3 million human lives have been exterminated by the U.S. military during his tenure as president. Now, so far, Donald Trump has only made a reputation up for himself by speaking about women. The previous candidate actually snuffed out the lives of probably 1.5 million female human beings. So it just wouldn't make any sense to say that this particular president has a lower regard for women than the previous president. It also has to be admitted that many people consider the people that are being exterminated in the current wars are of a different race. So there's no way to say that the previous candidate, the previous president, had a greater regard for people of different races than our current president. And as far as a Zionist agenda, I don't think there is anyone out there who thinks that the war in the Middle East is not based on the Zionist agenda. So far, the guy that's president now has not made as bad of a reputation for himself as the previous president. And here's something we need to keep in mind. These presidents represent the two conflicting political parties that exist in this country. So, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason that we have a different political party in power now, and it's the same reason we've always had. The people at the top don't want anything to change. They want it to stay the way it is because they're at the top. The people at the bottom want things to change because they're at the bottom. So the people at the top, the ones that choose the presidents, have to present it in a way that looks like the people at the bottom can have some hope. So they take a good guy and a bad guy, and you get to choose which is which. And it doesn't really matter if you think the Democrats are the bad guys or the Republicans are the bad guys. The fact is, that's the way the system's set up so that you can choose which one you perceive to be the good guy and which one you perceive to be the bad guy. And every time they change presidents, they change parties. Historically, you can go back and look. You get 8 years of a Republican, you get 8 years of a Democrat. You get 8 years of a Republican, 8 years of a Democrat. And there's very few occasions when that doesn't happen. Even if you go back in the ancient past of U.S. history, when the parties had different names, they changed them out every time they changed candidates. Recently, one of my subscribers sent me an email asking if I thought perhaps Donald Trump could be the Antichrist. Now, this isn't anything new. Since all of this started, stuff about Donald Trump being the Antichrist has popped up several times. But this is the first time that I've gotten a question directly from one of my subscribers. Now, since I don't normally delve into politics, I'm not really going to take sides in this video, but I am going to state where I stand or how I feel, because as somewhat of a public figure now, I think it's important that the people who look to me for answers understand how I feel about this particular issue. First is, as a human being, you're my listener right now. As a human being, you know that if you decide you're going to cut your grass, that there are things that have to be in place before you can do that. You have to have a lawnmower or somebody to come along and mow your grass, or you have to have the time for it. The weather has to be right. But there is a system. You can't just let the grass cut itself. That's not going to happen. Well, the same is true of just about anything you do. It doesn't matter if you're a surgeon, or if you want to be a surgeon, or if you want to stock groceries at a grocery store, or if you want to plant a garden. There is always some kind of accepted system for getting that done, and usually if you deviate from that system, you're not going to be successful. Well, that's the same way it is with insanely wealthy people. You don't get insanely wealthy by making sure your lawnmower runs. There's a completely different system. That system is to wake up every day making certain that every decision you make benefits you without any concern whatsoever for anybody else. If you stop for just a minute to take into consideration how your decisions affect others, you won't be a political leader or a financial leader or an economic leader or a religious leader or any other kind of leader. You have to make, if you want to acquire that goal, to reach the goal of being the most powerful man in the world, every decision you make from infancy has to be based on achieving that goal. You know, the rest of us have consciences. We sometimes take into consideration how our work will affect others. If you do that, then you'll always be just a regular human being. You might have a decent job eventually. You may be able to one day retire. You may be able to get an RV and travel around, but you're never going to be president. You're never going to be the owner of a multi-million-dollar corporation. That being said, could Donald Trump be the Antichrist? Well, the only thing we have as far as information about how to identify the Antichrist comes from the Bible. The Antichrist is the opposer of Christ. Christ means chosen one. Jesus Christ is God's chosen one, his chosen ruler, the ruler of his kingdom. Satan is the Antichrist. Satan, like Jesus, currently is a powerful spirit being. That being said, the Bible clearly makes it seem as if in the past Satan was a fleshly being, since the Bible speaks of fallen angels, demons, and wicked spirits as inhabiting the bodies of other creatures, including human beings. It is very likely that this is how Satan appeared to be a fleshly being in the verses that are about him in the Bible. Osiris, the very first world ruler ever mentioned in secular history, the ruler of Egypt, means bearer of the eye of enlightenment. That's what Osiris means. In the Bible, the Hebrew word that's the equivalent of Osiris is Lucifer, which means bearer of enlightenment. Later, after Osiris, the king of Tyre, Hiram-Ab, comes along, and the Bible speaks of him as Lucifer. The king of Persia is later said to do battle with Michael the archangel. This could not possibly be a fleshly human being, but a mighty spirit creature, most likely Satan. Later, when Alexander the Great conquered the world, the Bible spoke of him as the male stud goat of the male stud goats, another direct reference to Satan. All of these men were leaders of the ruling world empire at the time that they were spoken of as being Satan. Since this pattern is established, it's very obvious that if Satan takes human form again or inhabits the body of a fleshly human being, it likely will be the ruler of the ruling world empire when he does that. Currently, Donald Trump does hold that position, but many men have held that position, and there's nothing in the Bible to indicate that these were the only times that Satan made his appearance known on the earth. So it's possible that many world rulers have been possessed by Satan over the course of human history without getting any mention at all. Would someone who is inhabited by Satan be more evil than any other human alive? It's possible. No reason to say that that's not true or that that has to be the case. But it is obvious that anyone who becomes a president or a king or a prime minister would have to be evil. The definition of evil is lack of concern for the earth or others. And as the book of Galatians chapter 5 says, there is a distinct difference between those with a good spirit and those with a wicked spirit. The good spirit causes a person to exhibit things such as love, joy, peace, long-suffering, mildness, goodness, kindness, and control of self. In the previous versions, when it speaks about wicked people, it talks about people who are controlling others. There is no way to be the ruler of the ruling world power without having a craving to rule over others, a drive, an absolute unstoppable drive to rule over others. So by definition, anyone who would rule over the earth would have to be evil. Anybody who would fill the position of President of the United States could easily be defined in such a way. In any case, irregardless of whether Donald Trump is possessed by Satan or Barack Obama was possessed by Satan or anybody else on the earth has ever or will be ever possessed by Satan, according to the Bible, when Satan takes his throne is when the last days begin, and there are a whole lot of other things that are supposed to happen on that day, and none of those things has taken place. When they take place, then we can know for sure not only that Satan has taken his throne, but in what body he has done so. But until that time, we don't know. I don't know. You don't know. No YouTube preacher is going to be able to give you accurate information that would lead you to be able to figure out who the Antichrist is currently. That being said, if you don't want to survive, don't listen to me.